This podcast contains potentially adult language, adult themes, definitely drinking, and possibly sexual context. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Drinking with Authors, the podcast, and also live YouTube streaming video show. I suppose I should say that nowadays. I am your host, Erica Lance. With me today is
Vanessa Valiente.
Oh, we can pause for a second. Okay, and our guest today, and I'm going to Dalrymple. Yes, Wendy Dalrymple.
Yes, very good. Full marks.
I love the name. I have this thing with names, and it's terrible. I've done HR for 25 years. And like, there's a girl that works for me. I love her. Her name is Susan. I called her Samantha for a week and a half.
Oh,
I don't know why. And she thinks it's funny. So she treats that as her alter ego when she's like, oh, Samantha's here at work today. And I'm like, oh, that's going to be a whole load of bullshit. So anyway, okay, let's talk about what we're drinking because we do. So today it's a little chilly out here in Florida. I say that and people will laugh at us when we do this and they're up north and they're in the snow. But it is, I mean, looking at the temperature, 55 degrees out. So I decided to drink straight whiskey. So this is old, yeah, like a boss. This is Old Smoky Tennessee Mango Habanero. I've drunk it before on the show, but I love it and it's amazing and it's just on the rocks and I should be thoroughly fucked up by the end of the show. Vanessa, what are you drinking?
I am drinking wine this time. I'm not drinking water, so you don't have to yell at me this time. And I have, it's basically like the last glass I had of the Dreaming Tree Crush. So there you go.
That was very good. Okay, Wendy, what are you drinking?
I'm having 2 Guinnesses in a giant copper mug that I got for Christmas because it fits too. And this is going to be a long interview, so.
I love that. Yes. No. Okay. That's amazing. The tank. You guys got to watch on YouTube because the tankard's amazing. Okay, Wendy, tell all the fans out there that are listening or watching what you write.
I am primarily a contemporary romance author. I also write a little bit of historical and a little bit of paranormal. But contemporary small town sweet romance, which is important to denote, is what I typically write. So by that I mean there's going to be minimal swearing in my romance. There's going to be closed door sexy time scenes. It's going to be pretty wholesome, something you could let anybody read and not be embarrassed about. That's basically it. And it's also important to note that most of my stories take place in Florida. I live in Clearwater, and I like to bounce all over the state. There are a few of my stories that take place locally in Pinellas County and in Hillsborough County, but primarily I like to write about the state of Florida and have that be a character in my story alongside the main characters.
That makes sense. Florida can be a character in any story because we have a weird state. Right?
Yes, there's a lot of material to work off of. One of the stories I just got finished with is set over in Weeki Wachee, and it is a enemies to lovers manatee tour guide story. So that one was a lot of fun to write.
Are there mermaids in that story?
There's not mermaids in that one, but I did write a Weeki Wachee mermaid one as well. So I've really run the gamut of all the interesting things in Florida you could pick up.
What is the name of these stories?
So the one I was just telling you, it's called Love Springs because it's about going to the springs and seeing the manatees. The other one was Love Underwater, and that one was actually about a Weeki Wachee mermaid and her journey and like friends to lovers and just like a young, I guess you would call it a new adult story, just about her finding her way.
That's amazing. Okay, so when did you start writing?
Well, my mom would tell you I started writing when I was 5 years old, but the first I can remember is 3rd grade. I really got into it. Everybody else was asking for Nintendos that year, and I asked for a Smith Corona electric typewriter. And my parents were wonderful, and they got it for me. And so I've been writing in earnest since 3rd grade, but as far as publishing, it's only been within the last year and a half that I've been doing that.
Mm, very cool. So how many books do you have out if you've only been publishing for a year and a half?
Well,
I was cyber stalking you before this, but I didn't count. So
so I generally I write for Bryant Street Shorts, which is an imprint of Scribd. If you've heard of Scribd, I write originals, romances for them, and I
mhm.
do 1 to 2 of those a month, pretty much 2 a month at about 30,000 words each. So I've got, I think about 20 I did for them. I also did a novella of my own, a short story collection with my friend Emma under her pen name, and quite a few other short stories all within the last year and a half.
Wow, that is way more prolific than I have been. So
Well,
that's
it's my full-time job. This gets all, I have the luxury of having this be my full focus. So I think it's, probably for other people that seems like a lot, but for me it gets all of my attention.
well, I think even for some full-time writers, that's a lot. Just to put that into context. So why did it take you till now? Why did it take you till a year and a half ago?
Well, the same reason I guess it takes for everybody else when you get into it. I think I was 37 when I first got my first publication printed with Scribd, and I I was working full time for as a copywriter before then, raising my 3 sons, married, all that stuff. So just I never took the time to do it for myself. But then after the birth of my third son, I had been I had been misdiagnosed. I ended up having preeclampsia, which didn't get treated. And so what happens is that turns into full-blown eclampsia, and then you get sick and you probably die. Well, I didn't die. And so after that happened, you kind of go through like a period of like, what am I waiting for now? And so after that happened, I started a blog. I started writing short stories again. And from there, I was able to get the gig with Scribd. And so it was unfortunately like a really dramatic thing that happened that got me to finally say, okay, I'm not going to wait until my kids are grown up. I'm going to do it now. And so it really paid off.
Well, that
Well,
makes sense. Go
that's
for it.
definitely it's definitely like a way of taking a bad situation and really getting it to like put your focus into something positive and moving forward and something that maybe you wouldn't have taken a chance on doing unless this bad thing happened.
Right. Oh, and I definitely took a minute to wallow and feel sorry for myself after it happened. But then afterwards, I was like, what? I'm just, there's no reason to wait anymore. So,
Yeah.
No, it's a good outlook to have. And so let's go back to asking for a typewriter instead of a Nintendo, which arguably was a very interesting choice. And it's good that your parents were supportive and didn't immediately wonder if you needed some sort of help. But when when you're writing, what was your evolution like? When did you? I can ask a whole question. Wait for it. Wait for it.
we'll see. We'll see once that glass is empty.
No, I won't be able to. No. Jonathan Mayberry's seen what happens when that glass is empty. It's not a good thing. When did you decide, like, hey, I actually want to get published? Was this just a labor of love, a hobby? When you got published, but when were you like, you know what, I would like to do this? Like, when did
Right.
that thought come into mind?
Well, there was a few things that happened. So we bought a new house, and then we had to buy new appliances for our kitchen. And then I said, I don't want to pay on these anymore. I'm going to start doing some freelance on the side. And so I did that. And while I was doing the freelance, I found a gig to write a short story, and that ended up being for Scribd. And so it really wasn't until the opportunity fell in my lap that I even considered publishing a possibility for me. Like I knew I could self-publish. I knew I could do other things, but it wasn't until the opportunity was presented to me that I really took it by the reins and made it something. It was I wish there was a better way to put it, or a better story, but I was lucky that I came across a position that I'd always wanted my entire life, basically.
Now, did you have like a bunch of stories like you said you've always written yourself and you've clearly edited for other people, but did you just write for fun and have like a backlog of stories on your computer, or?
Yeah, I did, absolutely. I had stuff that I'd been working on for years, and then I finally put it into what it was a blog of my short stories, and that eventually became Florida Gothic, which I have out now in a short story collection on Amazon. And those are actually horror stories, which is what I initially thought that I wanted to do, which is also where the paranormal comes in. And I'm finding that I really am enjoying writing romance, especially in our current climate, being stuck at home, and just like the escapism that comes from it, the feel goods that come from it. I still love horror. I still would want to go back to writing horror someday, but at this point, like, I'm so grateful for romance that it's just really made things so nice, you know.
I think that's awesome. It's just interesting because a lot of times when you talk to people and they're writers for a long time, like their goal is like, I need to get this published. I need, regardless of what happens in your trajectory, it's very fascinating to find somebody that was like, yeah, I don't know, I kind of like it. And then somebody wanted to publish me. So I was like, okay, fine. I'll do that.
Well, yeah, and part of it too was like that fear of what stopped me for so long, and just the fear of putting stuff out there and having people read your stuff, and then you get the feedback on it. And it's like it took me to that point of something big happening in my life to me, like, well, I don't care anymore now. Like, I don't care if I get negative feedback. I don't care if anybody doesn't like it or not. Now it's like, you got to do it now, and you just got to suck up all those anxieties over it.
Yeah.
So let's touch on that for a second. What has it been like? What has your feedback been like?
Well, you know how it is when you get those bad negative reviews, they like glare and stare out at you, but like in reality, it's much less than the positive feedback I'm getting. And when you do get the positive feedback, and it's not from your mother or from your best friend or a former coworker, it's something really amazing. And so, I mean, people see it's as long as people know what they're getting. Like, I do have one story that has a cover, and it's a pretty sexy looking cover, but my story is toned down. It's not like it's the sweet romance, like I've said. So the covers, I saw you talk about in another podcast, are very important and setting expectation for the reader. So I think as long as the readers know that my story is going to be short and it's going to be sweet, that they're not going to be disappointed, hopefully.
No, and it doesn't matter if they are. So you read your reviews then?
I do. I know that's probably a mistake, but as a new writer, I really I want to know, and it's helped me develop a thick skin. And I know that there'll be some point where I just won't care anymore. But I think it's important to see what people are saying, and where my failings might have been. Like, if there's something that I missed, that what my readers want, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just knowing, you have to know what kind of person you are and how you handle criticism. Because if you're a person that, if you see one negative thing and you have a mental breakdown and then you're like, I'll never do this again, then it's best to kind of like not do it. But
Absolutely.
You have taken that as a way of saying, well, it is what it is, but let me see if I can get something positive out of those
Yeah.
reviews.
And it's like that old saying, like, you can be the juiciest peach or whatever, but there's still going to be somebody that doesn't like peaches. Like, that, like, you're not going to be for everybody. So you have to just kind of take that as, like, if somebody doesn't like what I wrote, then it doesn't mean that it's bad.
Yeah, I think it's a way of knowing what's good criticism and bad. I mean, if someone's saying, "Oh, it's just not my cup of tea," well, that's just someone's preference.
Right.
But if someone says, "Oh, I was following this one character and then they dropped off and disappeared," and I feel like, then that may be like, well, wait a minute, maybe I need to pay attention more to how you characterize certain characters, especially if you have multiple characters.
And then I think avoiding your feedback, you're missing out on all the positive feedback that people leave too, because people can be very generous, and it can really help build your confidence on that note as well.
No,
I think so too. I think reviews are an interesting animal, and I've heard so many prolific authors on the show talk about, that are 40 years in the business, and they talk about reviews, and they're just kind of like, meh. And it's interesting because, you know, I got on actually one of the first short stories I ever released, I got a negative review. And I actually considered it a compliment when I got it.
Somebody read your stuff. That was like
exactly. That was my whole thing. And I decided if I was ever on a panel where somebody stood up to complain about my work, that hasn't happened yet, but and maybe saying this, somebody will now do that. So that's great. That was well done of me. But if they stood up and they're like, oh, this, I'd be like, thank you for buying my book.
Yeah,
Any
right.
number of them that you're badgering right now, thank you for purchasing them. You can sit down.
And you also stirred an emotion in them. Perhaps it was a negative emotion, but you stirred an emotion. So you did something.
No, that makes sense. So you started writing horror though, and then went to sweet romance?
I did. And well, it was a little bit of a progression. I started with horror and then I went to paranormal romance and then to sweet romance, because I realized that with the paranormal romance subgenre, there's a lot of like a little like there's a lot of eroticism in it, and I don't have a problem with that personally. I don't have a problem writing it or reading it. I do, and I don't, it's not that I don't enjoy it, I'm not good at it. Like, I'm terrible at writing erotic scenes, and that's the true reason why I lean towards sweet romance, because I'm a little bit better with that. I feel I'm trying. I try every now and then to do a little bit of side stuff to see if I can, and it doesn't flow normally from me.
Yeah, I mean, I think you, as a writer, you have to know that there's certain things that you'll always read, but you won't write. Like, you know, there's certain things where I'm like, oh my gosh, I love fairies and stories. Me, I don't see in the foreseeable future that I'll be writing fairies, just because it's like, I don't know. That's not the thing that I gravitate to when it comes down to like actually getting on the computer and typing out my story, you know?
Right.
Yeah, that's way too much fucking world building for me. Like, I'm like, you know, I love fantasy writers. I admire fantasy writers. You know, I publish fantasy writers. It's way too much world building, like way too much. I'm like, I don't know. No, please and thank you. I don't need that, Jack.
And with contemporary, it's so easy to just pick from real life, from what you see from other people, and to just like but like you said with fantasy, like, oh my goodness, the imagination that it must take to create that, it is impressive.
No, totally is. And to keep track of everything, because that's the other thing. Vanessa over here does world building and has a world book, and I'm thoroughly impressed with her. I have a list of characters my lead character has slept with. I've done that. I don't know if that counts as world building, but it's a list I keep of that, so I don't do repeats.
I like building things from the ground up, because it requires me to research, which I enjoy research, like, you know, searching religions and, you know, different landscapings and stuff like that. But it sometimes, even as a thing, even though it's my thing and I love writing fantasy, it does have its moments where it does get daunting, because the world is its own character, and you can't lax on it, just, you know, and just, you know, throw it, just anything in there. It has to even make sense, even though if it's fantasy and magic based or anything like that.
So let's talk a little bit about your process, your writing process.
Well, I know that there's people that are pantsers and there's people that are plotters, and I am a big time plotter. I am a planner in like almost every aspect of my life, so it makes sense that I'm also a planner in writing. I'll get an idea for a story. Now with romance, it's a little easier to organize your thoughts, because romance is you got to hit your beats. There's tropes that you have to follow. Romance readers have an expectation of getting XYZ, and so in that way it's easy to plot for me, because I know that I have to do this, and this. But yeah, so I'll know I need to write a 30 or 35,000 word novella in 2 to 3 weeks. I'll mark it out. I got to do 2 to 3,000 words a day. I'll plot out my chapters, usually about 15 chapters ish. And I'll just try to get it done, and hopefully I'm not working on the weekends.
Now, when you say you plot, are you writing like maybe a paragraph summary? Are you doing bullet points? Are you doing a timeline? Like, how detailed in your outline do you go?
Usually about 1 to 2 sentences. It'll be like it's really it's formulaic, and I know that there's a lot of like people that don't like that. They think it's too rigid. But so for me, I write third person, omnipresent. I've only had a half a beer. So I write third person, and so I'll start with my first chapter will be to introduce the heroine. The second chapter will be to introduce the hero, and then from then on, I kind of flip flop, and they each get a chapter from their point of view as the story progresses. And so a lot of times, 75 to 80% of what I plan will end up in the story, and then things will pop up as they do as you're writing, like, oh, maybe he gets a motorcycle instead, like maybe we'll add that little flair in there. But yeah, it's usually all in my head before I even get it down from beginning to end.
That's very cool. How much research do you do? So if he suddenly gets a motorcycle, what kind of research are you doing?
I Google a motorcycle that looks good, and then I use that, because we're talking novella. So my main focus is on the relationship between the two people. That's where most of my words are going to go in, and those sorts of things I don't put a whole lot of detail into. I'm not going to have him replacing any parts on it that I have to research and figure out like how that actually works, so that somebody won't be like, they don't have that kind of lug nut, So since I am working on such a short word count, I really focus so much on just the two characters and them falling in love. But again, and having them set in Florida, I'll have them go to places that I have already gone, like St. Augustine, or to my hometown in Fort Myers, to Sarasota, like places that I've actually physically been, so that I can know what roads are there. I can know what the landscape looks like, that sort of thing.
No, that makes sense. I was going to ask, have you published an actual novel yet, like full length?
The longest I've done is a 40,000 word Christmas story called Miss Claus and the Millionaire, and it's set in St. Petersburg. But 40,000 is the longest that I've done. I'm like, most of my stuff is very short form.
Do you intend on finishing any novels, or do you like the short form?
I love the short form. I actually I started out writing short stories, so I love short form, but I would have eventually liked to do a longer form story and have that traditionally published, like who wouldn't, right? So I am currently working on a full length, and it is an enemies to lovers story, and it's set in a hurricane. And so that's my goal, is by the end of the summer to have that done on top of all my other million projects.
Nice.
Oh wow, that's very cool. Are you doing it as a series intended, or just one book?
It's going to be a standalone, but with characters sprinkled in, so that if whomever should pick it up is interested in a series, I can just pull from one of those characters and then make the next story in the series about that character. I feel like for me personally, having the same hero and heroine, or heroine and heroine, or hero and hero in a series of 1, 2, 3 is very difficult for my type of sweet romance writing, because like you would have to go to book 2 and they would have to have a breakup, or something awful would have to happen for them to get together again. So I like the idea of serial stories that focus on like jumping from one sibling to the next in a family, that sort of thing.
I think a lot of people do that. When I say series, I mean sort of around the same, in a way, world. Like you could do them set in St. Augustine. It's around St. Augustine and around that world of St. Augustine, but it's different characters. I agree with you, especially when it comes to romance type stories, even more so than erotica stories. Like there's only so many ways the characters are going to, end up together.
But there's so many different places they could do it in.
Well, there are, but there's still, yeah, trust me. Yeah, it's more difficult to write those kind of things.
I think it's great that you recognize that, because sometimes the worst thing is when someone drags out a relationship over multiple books, and you're just like, oh,
yeah,
together and just shut up.
Well, even with the story, like I try to save it till the end for them to get together. Spoiler alert. But it seems like if they get together in the middle of a story, then what's the rest of the story going to be about? And unless they have a baby and get married in the end, but that's not always the end goal of my heroines. Like I don't necessarily think that needs to be part of a romance story.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's harder to have longevity when you're focusing on just one aspect of the story, like romance. If maybe you had a story that had romance and mystery and murder, then that's a different thing because you can kind of like spread it over several books. But I think that's great that you recognize what it is that you're good at, what you have, and you work within that framework. So
Yeah. Thank you.
yeah.
No, I think it's awesome. Okay, we actually have to take a quick break. We're going to be back in just a minute with Wendy.
Sample locally sourced, quality distilled spirits in the beautiful Columbia River Gorge. At Skunk Brothers Distillery, we're family owned, brewing small batch grain to bottle spirits, just like our grandfather did back in the Prohibition era. From handcrafted bourbons and moonshine to flavored blends and cordials infused with local fruit. Join us for a tasting tour and buy Skunk Brothers Spirits straight from the source.
It's all in the family at Skunk Brothers Spirits, located in Stevenson, Washington.
And we're back. Okay, so I want to ask a question. You keep talking about traditional publishing, and you did mention self-publishing, but then when you talked about your book, I'm paying attention, by the way, you're going to be impressed, that you are looking for somebody to publish it. How come you don't want to go the self-publishing route?
It's really, I'm already doing that with one of my novellas that I have, with an anthology that I have with a friend, and a couple of my short novelettes. And it's hard. It is a heck of a grind. And I really have a lot of respect for people that do it and are able to be profitable with it. I don't know that I'll ever get to that point. And so I feel like having a smaller independent publisher would be helpful for me, as a new author starting out, trying to get my name out there, somebody to help guide me with publishing. Because like when I was a little girl with my typewriter, I thought that I was just going to get to write my stories and send them out, and then people would pay me the money. But that's not the case now. When you're a self-published author, you are also your own book cover designer. Sometimes you're your own editor. Sometimes you're always your own publicist. There's so much. It's not just writing the stories. And so I feel like getting a smaller publisher, maybe someday a bigger publisher behind me to help me, would be a good thing. And I know a lot of independent authors don't feel that way, but it's a route that I would like to try before I write it off. Haha, write it off.
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't think it's necessarily a bad, it's just interesting. And, of course, part of the reason we have this podcast is to talk about different views and ways to look at things and stuff like that, because I agree with you. Never be your own editor, by the way, out there. I'm going to just stress this again. Like, that is never a good plan. Even my editors that work at Four Horsemen, who are brilliant, one of them's on the show right now, cannot be her own editor. No, you can't. Our editors are kind of actually infamous for doing some of the stuff that drives them completely nuts as
You're absolutely blind to your own errors. Everybody is.
Oh yeah. Except for me, I don't have any errors and I'm brilliant. So
let me bust out my receipts, Erica.
Yes, whatever, Vanessa. Brilliant. I'm actually brilliant because I don't care, and I just give it to the editor, and I'm like, tell me something that I'm repeating over and over again, and I'll remember to do it. It's that sort of putting the Post-its on your computer. Look for the word that. Just like you get these like, this is what I'm doing. So you work with a smaller press. How did you come upon that opportunity?
So I was approached by Bryan Street Shorts, which is a imprint of Scribd. If you're not familiar with Scribd, they're a little bit like Kindle Unlimited, like Audible. They're really heavily focused with audiobooks as well. And so what they were aiming to do is create a bunch of their own original content. They wanted to be the Netflix of reading, is the way it was presented to me, and that's exactly what they are. It's you pay a fee every month, and then you get this big digital library of ebooks and audiobooks. And since romance writers are so voracious, they weren't able to keep up with the demand for romance. So that's why they wanted to start building their own Scribd originals, a library of romance. And so I was lucky enough to get in on the ground with that. And now I'm never leaving them because they're so good to me.
Very cool. Do you have print books or just ebooks and audio?
I do. Well, the deal with my contracts with Scribd right now is that they get a year of exclusivity with my ebooks, and they cover all. I get paid for them, and then they also take care of all the editing and the covers, and they create an audiobook out of it. And then after a year, the rights to the ebook are reverted to me, and then I'm able to sell them wide, like go wide with them. I can't obviously go on Kindle Unlimited with them because Scribd will have them as well, but I'll be able to sell them on Amazon and on Google Play and Barnes and Noble and Kobo. So I just have to wait a year, and then I get the rights reverted back to me, and then I get to make them into paperback. So I think I have 3 from Scribd that I already have in paperback that are available on Amazon.
That's really awesome. That's a lot of fun. So let's talk about your writing process. I know you have little furry animals in your house and little mini me animals in your house.
I do.
A combination of both. What is your writing process like?
Well, I think everybody has had to shift the way they work, obviously, in our modern age, with working from home. My husband works from home full time now as well. For a period of time there, my 2 older sons were homeschooled, so it was a little chaotic. So you grab your time whenever you can. A lot of times I'm up in the middle of the night because the dog barked at something, and so I wake up at 2:30 and I can't go back to sleep, so I grab my writing time then until everybody wakes up. It's just there's no schedule for me to write. It's just whenever I can grab the time.
And I mean, obviously, besides the middle of the night, because you shouldn't do this, do you listen to music? What do you do?
Sometimes I listen to like ambient noise, like on YouTube. They'll have channels and it'll be like a really pretty picture of like a fairy castle and like meadow sounds in the background, like ASMR type stuff, just whatever to block out all of the creepy house noises that might get my attention. But yeah, I'll listen to just something like in the background, like water and tapping noises or whatever.
It's so I just listened to my faucet run in the background. Where do you get that would be hysterical. I really want an author to come on and be like, I just turn on my faucet and let it drip, and that is what I listen to. It's very Faulkner, actually, now that I think about it. Where do you get you talk about Florida, but do you people watch? What inspires you? What makes you go, I'm writing this down?
Absolutely. So the manatee story I was telling you about was inspired by a manatee trip that I took. I went swimming with manatees. It terrified me. I know that sounds silly, but like they're so big and I'm so afraid of creatures in the water, and they were totally fine. I was just a weirdo. But while I was on the trip, the boat, the tour guide was like so enigmatic. He was just like such a character, and he stuck out in my mind. And so he was a little bit of inspiration for one of my characters. I have another book which is actually a romantic thriller, and it's called The Bird in the Window. And it's inspired by my own neighborhood. There's a house in my neighborhood, and somebody has a blue and yellow macaw that like sits in the front window of their house. And I just I see it when I walk my dog, and I saw that and it gave me an idea for a story. And so, yeah, absolutely. The world around me, past experiences I've had. I don't ever model any of my characters over people I personally know. Sometimes I might borrow a little bit of their name for fun, but I won't model the character after them. But
you never write your friends and stuff into the books? We were just talking about that last night, about the person, and she's like, I write all of my frenemies into my books.
No. That's like, I don't know. I feel like that's just bad karma for me. But I don't know. Maybe somebody will wrong me enough someday that I will.
What I'll do is I'll murder them, but it's their name, but twisted in a way where it can't be full on karma on me. It was the way I justified in my mind.
I have a friend of mine. We actually have a collection of names. Like if we hear a strange name, we have a running collection of names, just like bizarre names for inspiration. So sometimes I pull from that for names too.
No, I think that's a brilliant idea. Okay, so you were like, I'm gonna write full time. This is a fun story. I'm gonna write full time. I'm gonna do this. When do you get out? I mean, obviously we're in the time of COVID, so nobody's going freaking anywhere, right? But
No.
did you ever read up in front of people?
I, I can't honestly remember because most of my writing career has been during COVID. So it's before. I have not read any of my stuff live. I was never able to do that yet. I did do a reading on another podcast of some of my stuff before.
Did you have like any friends or beta readers or anyone read your stuff prior to your like, I'm gonna put this into the world?
It's so hard because I don't have a whole lot of other friends in my, like, I have a lot of writer friends online now, but in my real life, I don't have a whole lot of other writer friends like in that write fiction. So it was always hard. So I just kind of like went with my gut and submitted what I had when I came upon opportunities.
Do you have a writer group at all online now?
I have a few that I belong to on Facebook and stuff, but I have a lot of the other writers that write for Bryant Street Shorts. We're connected, and we exchange ideas, and we do beta reads for each other now, and so that's been nice to have, like, just connections with people over in England and other parts of the country that I feel you feel like so close to them because you talk all the time about your writing and you've never met these people in person. So it is kind of strange.
What do you think of beta readers?
I think that beta readers are necessary. I think they're fine. The thing with the way that I write for Bryant Street Shorts, it's so quick. It's like I'll write it, and then it'll get edited and a cover will be made, and it'll be 3 weeks from the time that I submitted it to the time that it's published. It's like so fast. So if I get one beta reader on my story in that time, I'm lucky.
Wow, that is super fast. Do they give you back your edits?
They do if they feel like they're necessary. A lot of times, if it's just grammatical issues, they'll just obviously fix that, not make me add all of the commas that I definitely missed. But as far as like, unless something is not like, if they think that it's not going along with like feminist ideals, if it's problematic, if there was a sensitivity read issue, we'll definitely get notes back on that. But most of the time, if you don't get them done quickly, your edits, then they won't be churned out as quickly, and I like to have them turned out quickly so I get to them.
Like,
wow, that's awesome. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. For you to turn them out so quickly, how many books, like when do you start at the beginning of the year and say, okay, this is your schedule, you have to write this amount, like how do they set you up? Like, how do you know what your expectation is for the year?
Well, that's a good question. So we have a portal where we submit our pitches. So we have to give them a really detailed pitch and a 500-word outline. And so I'll pitch 2 of those a month. Usually they get picked up, and I'll know that I'll have 4 to 5 weeks to write these 2 30,000-word novellas. And so the thing that's the writing part is hard. It's the coming up with ideas for stories and titles. That's easy. I can do that all day long. I have a notebook that I keep my ideas in. So I got the ideas. It's just the getting them put down on paper and getting them fully fleshed out, so it's not just an idea. That's where the work comes in.
Okay, so you said you do that and you submit these and you have 4 to 5 weeks to do 2 30,000-word stories.
Mm-hmm. But like I said, I don't have, this is my job. Like this is all that I do, and I love it. So I will some days work. Some days I write 500 words and that's it. Some days I'm working 14 hours a day when I'm probably close to deadline just to finish. So if I had to have a outside of the home job, it wouldn't be like this at all. Like, I'd be lucky if I could do one every 6 months.
So how many books did you write last year?
Gosh, well, I would guess, I think, I wasn't quite as fast in the beginning, obviously. So it was, I think I probably did about 20.
Wow.
But not, like, remember, they're not full length. They're novellas.
That doesn't matter. That equals 10 full length books. So that's ridiculous.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, the fact is most people talk about it, but they actually never accomplish, not even a short one. They just talk about it. And it's the fact that you did that many.
Well, I built that up. That was what I was almost 30 years of waiting to write, and so I just went for it, I guess.
What about audiobooks? So have your books been made into audiobooks yet?
Yes, and it's quite an amazing thing to hear your story in an audiobook, and to like my favorite one I have it's my only historical romance that I have through script. It's called The Shield Maiden's Secret. The narrator is so good. It's so good, and I get chills when I listen to it, and I love it. And so far I've loved every single one of my narrators. It like I try to connect with them if I can on Twitter and be like, I love what you did. You brought my characters to life. This is great. That's one of the best things for me about writing for Bryant Street Shorts is that they do produce the audiobooks, and I think that that's really helped to gain me readership and help with like just building my presence is having the audiobooks, because people are voracious with them, and they really, once they read one, I've noticed they jump to the other ones, and so if they've listened to one of my audiobooks, then they're probably going to listen to many more.
That's good. But you get to listen to it. I think it's neat when you get it. Do you get to choose your narrators?
No, we don't. But so far, like I said, they've done a really great job of matching up. Like the narrator for my my Shield Maiden Viking stories got like a British accent, and she's just I like, chef kiss. Like she's great.
That's awesome. Okay, so do you do all your writing on laptop? I'm assuming you still saved your typewriter though, right? You have that somewhere?
I think my mom still has it. I think it's in the Wendy Dalrymple / Wendy Owen Museum of History in my parents' house in Fort Myers. So I did not bring it with me when I left home though.
No. Can you write in like coffee shops and stuff like that?
I haven't had really the luxury of doing that yet, so I would love to try it someday.
But you wrote previously, like your 30 years of writing. Where did you write?
It was laptops. It was, I probably have like my husband's in IT, so I've had a number of laptops over. So I probably have work on like a laptop from 5 laptops ago that I just didn't properly save. But I do have a ergonomic keyboard because I have 38-year-old wrists, and so it's like a wireless keyboard that attaches to my laptop. And because I'm very hard on keyboards too, I'm a passionate typer, so I go through them very quickly. But yeah, and I use mainly Google Docs, which is great because if you have an idea on something, you can be on your phone while you're sitting and be like doot doot doot, and you put it right in there. And I love Google Docs for that. I'm not a commercial for Google Docs.
Pre-COVID, did you before pre-COVID, pre-publishing, did you ever take your laptop to a location? Like, did you go to because see, for me, sometimes I like to go to the Barnes and Noble cafe and just put on headphones and just get a coffee and just to get out of my space, or you just do it at home?
No, I've seen some writers where they will just get in their car and they'll drive to a park and they'll just sit and they'll do it in their car. And I think that's great. But I don't, like I said, for me, I like just the way that my family life has been. And it's just, I kind of have to grab my writing time when I can grab it. And so if it's at 2 a.m, I'm not really going to go anywhere. But after COVID, once all the kids are back in school, I think I will definitely try that because it sounds amazing.
Very cool. Does your husband read your work?
So it's romance, and he's an IT guy. He's not really a big reader. He listens to audiobooks, and he's listened to a few of my audiobooks, but he really I mean, I wouldn't expect him to. But it really is. It's like it's hard to ask your friends and your family to read your stuff, and if they do, then I'm so grateful, but I don't expect it of anybody because it's kind of like it becomes a weird thing then.
You are much nicer than the rest of us writers, because I'm like, here, read this fucking book and then tell me what you think about it. Like, that is me. I'm like, you will take this and you will tell me what you think. Here, I'm bringing you hard copies so you have no excuse.
I think too, for me, it's like I assume that anybody in my personal life that I give it to, they're gonna be like, "This is great, you're a great writer," and they won't really give me honest feedback. And so I think that that's where, like you were saying, with beta readers, you give it to somebody that doesn't know you, they're gonna tell you what they think, and that's useful information to me. So I know my mom thinks I'm great. Like
What is it like having your mom read your romance stories?
it is not as awkward as you would think. My mother has been a lifelong romance reader. She actually just within the last year left working for childcare full time to go work at a library. So she's the reason that I loved writing and reading in the first place. And she always had a yellow legal notepad and was always writing her own romance stories back. And if things were the way they are now, she probably would have self-published back then. And so she's fine with it. Like it's not awkward at all for me.
Does she critique you at all, or does she just go, "It's fabulous, Wendy"?
No, but I don't ask either. I know she probably would give me some feedback, but it's, as far as everything else goes, she's never been one to be like unless I ask for her opinion, she doesn't give it. So.
No, that makes sense. It can't be as awkward as my dad reading my erotica books, though. So you're good.
That's the difference too. It's like I'm not presenting that kind of material.
Yeah, no, that's not when I handed to him. That's not what I handed to him. I can't actually. I just thought of that, Vanessa. I can't wait till your parents read your erotica books.
No, they will never know. They will
never know.
No.
Vanessa, I know I saw one of yours, Erica, but Vanessa, do you publish under your name or do you publish under a pen name?
Both. Right now, the only stuff I have are like I participated in like 2 separate anthologies. So on Amazon, I have 2 short stories that I've submitted under my real name. And then I'm working to Erica because I know she's looking at me directly. I will have full-length novels under my actual name, but I do have a pen name because I am gonna do erotica. But I have the unfortunate kind of situation where my family, if they found out, they will never let it down. My dad and my brother would harass me to the end of time.
Oh, that's kind of sweet though.
No, it's not. It is not sweet in any way. It is exactly what you think of, the worst case scenario. Like my dad would be the kind of guy that would be like, "Hey, at the hibachi restaurant, my daughter's writing this, and this," and try to embarrass me in front of like a whole mass of group of people, and I just can't do that. I can't do it.
Well,
my dad does that, but not from an embarrassment. He's super proud.
Yeah.
This is my daughter. She's the one that wrote Whore Island. I told you about her, and I'm like,
would you not be proud of Whore Island?
He was proud of me. Oh, I forgot. I also have my name included in this. I just had this nearby me. The author's accountability planner, and when Erica mailed it to me, and I was like, I went to my dad because I always tell my family because they know how much writing's important to me. My normal regular day job has nothing to do with writing, and they know that this is what I'm working towards. And I was like, look, my name is on this. It's right here. And so I get a joy out of showing them that this kind of stuff. But erotica, I just know that
you're published, and accidentally mail something to your dad. Accidentally.
No, Erica, I will come after you.
Won't be taking me back. Like,
but that is why pen names exist, right? So that you don't have to hold back on your writing.
Exactly. Which I will say, I never thought I would get to writing erotica because it's just not something I thought of myself as doing. But I will say it's always a joy to do something way out of your comfort zone because you could just have fun with it and then you just don't care and you're just like, okay, and just go with it. And that's what I've gotten out of this whole like experience is just making it into this like fun, quick thing and put it out there in the world.
That is the nice thing about erotica too, is it's generally shorter. So,
Yeah.
Mine is not that much shorter, actually. I do full-length erotic, but they're humorous erotic novels. So I think It just depends on the context. I don't think you can have a book of just straight sex necessarily and keep it entertaining for people. You know, what I mean? Like, I don't think that's a thing. Let's talk a little bit about social media. What is your, like, do you have a newsletter? What's your setup?
I'm on all of it, whether I didn't really want to be. So pre-COVID, I had almost completely backed away from social media, self-publishing, pre-script. And I quickly found out that if I want to build my presence, then I got to be there. And so I'm basically there to, each one's got its own different purpose. So with Twitter, I'm basically trying to connect with other writers and with people in the publishing industry and other editors. With Instagram, I'm trying to connect with book bloggers and with readers. And I have a Facebook as well. I have my newsletter on my website, Goodreads, which I have to keep up for myself so that I make sure it looks nice. And then I have recently started TikTok, and I feel like such a grandma when I say that, because everybody on there's like 14, but it's super fun and it's really a fast growing market, and it's going to be interesting to see how that will affect my readership, my sales, all that stuff by being on TikTok, because I know that a lot of authors are getting on there and seeing good results.
Well, I have to ask, what do you put on TikTok? Because I have seen authors use that. I didn't think that as an author tool, but I've seen authors do like fun videos where like what a writer's really thinking in their head, and they do fun little skits. What do you normally do?
I don't do a whole lot of that. I've done a couple of little skitty things, but mostly I'll put my book trailers on there because I love to make book trailers on Canva. So I'll put my book trailers on there when I'm trying to promote a sale I'm doing, or if I have a free book. And then I'll make videos. I'll make like silly little YouTube videos that are just like about romance readers or about romance in general. And so that's mainly what the kind of content I post up on there, because eventually I might do like, you can do like with Facebook Live, you can do TikTok Live, and I might do a live reading on there or something, but there's so many things you could do with it. And I'm just learning.
Yeah, no, I haven't ventured into the TikTok realm other than to watch drag makeup videos.
Well, there's definitely a lot of good stuff on there. Definitely.
I think I purposely did not download it on my phone because I was like, these are one of these things that's going to go down like dark hole, and I can't have anything distracting me from my writing.
Oh, definitely.
I have been a fan of when they do those videos with the song where they were like wiping the window and then their face changes.
Yeah.
Or like those make me laugh. I really enjoy it. And I will admit there are quite a few like adults on there that make hilarious content.
Yeah. Well, and then the way it is, it makes editing videos like so easy. You don't have to be technically savvy to make a really cool video, and it's just really intuitive program.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Okay, we are nearing the end of the podcast. The first thing I'd like to ask is, what advice do you have, since you waited 30 years, then went at this full speed ahead like, like the Road Runner or something. What advice do you have for authors out there?
Don't wait 30 years. Don't wait until you have a major dramatic life event to be scared to put your stuff out there, or to just try to do something, or to take time for yourself to do something, because really that's what it was, is trying to find the time to do the things for myself. So yeah, that's my advice. Don't wait 30 years. And it's easy to say, don't be brave, don't be scared, but I know everybody's different, and everybody has different levels of comfort and different levels of anxieties that they feel about things. But my hope is for other aspiring writers that they can find the courage to just do it.
That is awesome. I love that. Okay. And shameless self-promotion time. How do readers find you?
Well, as I've said before, on Scribd, if you have a Scribd subscription, that's where you're going to find the largest catalog of my work. And you can get a free trial from there, I believe a 30-day free trial. So I have audiobooks there and all of my ebooks. I'm also available on Amazon. Some of my stuff's on Kindle Unlimited, some of it's not. Also Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and Google Play.
Awesome. You have been wonderful. Thank you for coming.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. Okay, guys, this has been Drinking with Authors. I've been your host, Erica Lance.
And I'm Vanessa Valiente.
And we will see you next time.
Bye.